So I go to the door, and I make my cheeks pink to make me look fetching.
For decades, Julia Roberts has been Hollywood's golden smile, the queen of romantic comedies, the face of timeless beauty, and the woman who made audiences believe in love again. From Pretty Woman to Notting Hill, she wasn't just acting, she was creating magic. But behind that radiant charm and that million-dollar smile was a woman who shared unforgettable chemistry with some of the most handsome men ever to grace the screen. Now, at 90 years old, Julia Roberts is finally opening up about the 6 leading men who truly left their mark on her heart. Not in gossip columns or tabloid stories, but in moments of pure emotion on set. These were the men who challenged her, inspired her, and reminded her what it meant to fall in love, even if only for the camera. Each of these co-stars shared something rare with Julia, an unspoken bond, a spark that made audiences believe the romance was real. From intense passion to gentle affection, these connections shaped not only her performances, but her journey as an actress and a woman. What did she really feel while filming those legendary scenes? Who made her laugh when the cameras stopped rolling? And who nearly made her heart skip for real? This is the untold story of Julia Roberts' most cherished on-screen partners. The 6 men who, in her own words, made me believe in love every single time. When people think of Julia Roberts, one name almost always follows: Richard Gere. Their chemistry in Pretty Woman wasn't just movie magic. It was lightning caught on film. Julia was just 22, still new to Hollywood, while Gere was already an established leading man. The odds of them creating one of cinema's most iconic romances seemed slim, but what happened on that set would define both of their careers and their hearts forever. At first, Julia was intimidated. Gere was calm, elegant, and effortlessly composed, the very image of Hollywood sophistication. She, on the other hand, was full of energy and laughter, a mix of nerves and curiosity. But from the first moment they met, something clicked. There was no forced connection, no rehearsed charm, just 2 people who truly liked each other. Crew members later recalled that when the cameras weren't rolling, Julia and Gere would often stay in character, teasing and joking, slipping naturally into the easy rhythm of Vivian and Edward. There was a warmth between them that couldn't be faked. In one memorable moment, Julia was nervous during a close-up scene, and Gere quietly took her hand, whispering, "You've got this." The tension disappeared. What followed was a performance so honest it melted millions of hearts. Off-screen, their friendship blossomed into something deep and enduring. They never dated, but both admitted they shared a unique affection for each other, a kind of emotional shorthand that only 2 people who truly understand one another can share. Years later, when they reunited for Runaway Bride, that connection was still there. The spark hadn't dimmed. If anything, time had only deepened it. Julia once said in an interview, "Richard was my safety net. He made me feel protected when I was still figuring out who I was." And Gere, for his part, has called Julia pure light, a phrase that captures exactly what audiences saw when they shared the screen. Even now, decades later, both stars speak of their bond with warmth and nostalgia. There was never scandal, never bitterness, just mutual respect and affection. For Julia, Richard Gere wasn't just a co-star. He was a grounding force, someone who showed her that connection doesn't always need to be romantic to be real. Their story remains one of the most cherished partnerships in film history, proof that sometimes the truest kind of love is the one that never needed a label. If Pretty Woman gave Julia Roberts her fairy tale beginning, Notting Hill gave her something even rarer, vulnerability wrapped in grace. Opposite Hugh Grant, Julia didn't just play a movie star in love, she lived it. The world fell for Anna Scott, but Julia's connection with Hugh was something even she couldn't quite explain, a mixture of respect, humor, and a little bit of mischief. By the late 90s, Julia was already one of Hollywood's biggest icons, while Hugh Grant had captured hearts as the quintessential British gentleman. When they met for the first table read, there was instant rapport. Hugh's awkward wit clashed and somehow blended perfectly with Julia's lively warmth. Together, they brought to life one of cinema's most unforgettable love stories. Behind the scenes, their chemistry was electric but effortless. Crew members remember bursts of laughter between takes. Hugh would tease Julia about her infectious laugh, and she would counter with sharp comebacks in that sweet southern drawl. Their banter was so natural that even director Roger Michell once said, "You didn't have to direct them to be in love. You just had to keep the cameras rolling." But beneath the humor, there was something deeper. Julia later admitted that working on Notting Hill was emotionally complex because the story mirrored her real life. Like her character, she too was a world-famous actress searching for something genuine. "There were moments when I looked at Hugh and saw not just my co-star, but someone who understood that strange loneliness fame can bring," she once shared. Hugh Grant, known for his self-deprecating honesty, later said in interviews that Julia Roberts was a proper great actress at not just the smile, though the smile is 50 megawatts. He confessed that filming romantic scenes with her was both thrilling and terrifying. "You're acting with someone who's effortlessly luminous," he said. "It makes your job easier and harder, all at once." Their connection never crossed into scandal or gossip. Instead, it became a friendship built on humor and admiration. They stayed in touch long after the cameras stopped rolling. Hugh often joked that Julia could make him laugh in ways no one else could, while she described him as the most delightfully awkward man I've ever met. For Julia, Notting Hill wasn't just another romantic comedy. It was a reminder that love, whether on screen or off, is often found in the most unexpected places. And for Hugh, it was proof that sometimes chemistry is born not from passion, but from laughter and trust. To this day, their film remains one of the most beloved romantic movies ever made, precisely because audiences sensed that what they were watching wasn't entirely make-believe. Behind those tender glances and shy smiles were two people who, in another life, might have written a love story of their own. Julia once summed it up perfectly. "Hugh made me laugh when I wanted to cry. That's love in its purest form." Among all of Julia Roberts' leading men, few matched her intensity the way Denzel Washington did. When the two teamed up for the 1993 legal thriller The Pelican Brief, audiences weren't expecting romance. But what they got instead was something even more powerful: chemistry built on mutual respect and deep admiration. At the time, both actors were at pivotal points in their careers. Julia was the reigning queen of Hollywood, known for her romantic roles, while Denzel was ascending to legendary status as one of the industry's most commanding and thoughtful performers. When they came together, it was like watching two worlds collide: charm and precision, emotion and discipline. On set, Julia was in awe of Denzel's focus. He was meticulous, calm, and deeply invested in every line of dialogue. She often described him as the eye of the storm, completely centered even when chaos swirled around them. Denzel, in turn, admired Julia's emotional openness. "She brings truth to everything," he once said. "Even in silence, she tells a story." Their relationship off-camera was one of pure camaraderie. They shared long conversations between takes about art, fame, and life away from the spotlight. Julia respected Denzel not just as an actor, but as a man, someone who carried his success with grace and humility. She once recalled a moment during filming when she was struggling with exhaustion. Denzel noticed immediately, quietly handed her a coffee, and said, "Take a breath. We've got this." That simple act of kindness stayed with her for decades. Although The Pelican Brief didn't feature a traditional love story, the energy between them was undeniable. Many viewers even wondered why their characters never shared a romantic moment on screen. But the truth was more meaningful. Denzel had deliberately chosen to keep the relationship platonic out of respect for Julia and for the story's focus. When asked about it years later, Julia called his decision honorable and said, "Denzel's integrity is one of the things I'll always admire most about him." Their friendship continued long after the movie wrapped. They would occasionally reconnect at events, always greeting each other with warmth and laughter. Julia never forgot how Denzel treated her during a time when Hollywood could be unforgiving toward women. He didn't see her as competition or a co-star to outshine. He saw her as an equal. In later interviews, Julia often referred to Denzel as one of the finest men she ever worked with, a person who not only elevated her performance, but reminded her of the kind of artist she wanted to be. "He taught me that strength and kindness can live in the same space," she said. Their partnership might not have ended in a movie romance, but it was built on something far more lasting, mutual admiration and deep respect. And in the end, that kind of connection can sometimes be more powerful than love itself. For Julia, Denzel Washington wasn't just another leading man. He was a mentor, a mirror, and a reminder that true chemistry doesn't always need a kiss. Sometimes it's found in the quiet moments between two souls who simply understand each other. If there was ever a co-star who truly understood, Julia Roberts, her humor, her fire, her contradictions, it was George Clooney. Their friendship, built over years and multiple films, stands as one of the most genuine and enduring relationships in Hollywood. Together, they blurred the line between camaraderie and connection, creating on-screen magic that always felt effortless, real, and deeply human. Their first major collaboration came with Ocean's 11 in 2001, a slick heist film packed with star power. Yet, amid the glittering cast, it was Julia and George who stole the spotlight, not with romance, but with undeniable chemistry. Their playful banter, sharp timing, and shared laughter gave audiences a glimpse of something special. It wasn't scripted. It was two people who genuinely loved being around each other. On set, George was the prankster, always teasing Julia, while she countered with her trademark wit. Crew members often recalled how the two could light up the entire room with just their laughter. One day, after Julia arrived late to a shoot, George had taped a note to her trailer that read, "You're late, but worth it." Julia laughed so hard that she kept the note for years, but behind all the laughter was a deep bond. Both had weathered the highs and lows of fame, and both valued privacy above spectacle. In interviews, Julia has described George as my brother, my confidant, and one of the safest people I know. He, in turn, once called her the heartbeat of any room she walks into. Their connection was especially visible in Ticket to Paradise, 2022, where they played a divorced couple rediscovering affection while trying to stop their daughter's wedding. Even after decades of friendship, the chemistry hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened. Fans and critics alike couldn't help but comment on how natural their intimacy felt. Every smile, every playful argument carried layers of familiarity and love. George once admitted that filming romantic scenes with Julia was both joyful and surreal. "It's like kissing your best friend," he joked. "But your best friend happens to be Julia Roberts, so it's complicated." Julia laughed when asked about it, replying, "It's easy with George. He makes you feel like you've known him your whole life." Their friendship never dipped into scandal or rumor, and that's what made it so refreshing. It was based on loyalty, trust, and shared laughter, the kind of bond that time only strengthens. In a world where Hollywood relationships often crumble under the weight of fame, George and Julia's connection stood as a beacon of authenticity. Julia has often said that she feels safest when working with George because he never lets ego get in the way of kindness. And George, ever the gentleman, sums it up simply: she's family. At 90, when Julia Roberts looked back at the men who shaped her journey, the ones who stole her heart on set, George Clooney's name carried a different kind of weight. Not as a lover, but as a lifelong friend who reminded her what love, in its purest form, can look like: laughter, loyalty, and a shared understanding that some bonds are bigger than any movie. And maybe that's Julia's ultimate lesson after a lifetime in front of the camera: that the truest connections aren't written in scripts. They're found in the quiet, honest moments between takes, shared between two souls who never stop making each other smile.